For more, we're joined by historian Gérard Prunier, whose books include Darfur, the Ambiguous Genocide. Thank you for being with us. Your reaction to this deal?
Well, I'm afraid it's probably buying time on the part of what we still call the military. And I don't know even if that's the proper name, because that's not the Sudanese army we're dealing with. It's a private military corps from Western Sudan. And they're buying time. And I think they're buying time because this is the help and instructions they're getting from Saudi Arabia and from the United Arab Emirates.
You really think so? You think they're getting their orders from abroad?
As long as the orders coincide with their own interest, they have no objection. But, the financing is coming from there. I don't think they need to be given orders. Right. Suggestions backed up with cash are plenty enough.
Why is it so much in the interest of those Gulf states and Egypt to back the military?
Frankly, the fear of democracy. You cannot have the usual accusation, which was the case during the Syrian civil war. The people who want democracy are mixed with very dubious Islamist characters who represent another agenda. There, the Democrats are anti-Islamist. So they cannot be tarred with the same brush. They come completely, with a political attitude that is very hard to criticize from when they're nonviolent. They don't have Islamist radicals with them. They require, democracy. It's very difficult to contradict what they're saying.
So let's go over this agreement. A sovereign council, as it's being called, 21 months of leadership for somebody from the military, followed by 21 months by a civilian. Are you dubious because you would have preferred to see it the other way around? First the civilian, then the military?
That would be definitely something that would be a little bit more convincing, because in 21 months a lot of things can happen or not happen. Nominations, people moved around, people who were forced into exile by harassment. This is open to a whole number of manipulations.
Yeah, there's going to be, on this council, 5 civilians, 5 military, and an 11th seat will go to a civilian chosen by both parties.
The term chosen by both parties already is a thorn in the shoe.
They're never going to agree on that 11th person?
Yeah. Even among the civilian Democrats, the agreement is far from being unanimous.
Right. So it's going to be quite a juggling act. The civilians did get one of their demands, which is that the government will be completely civilian and will be technocrats.
Yes, but who will pick those technocrats? We are in a political desert. After 30 years of dictatorship, and this is a problem which, by the way, is not only that of Sudan, but it happens after long periods of dictatorship, and it's not always that you have the equivalent of Konrad Adenauer in Germany in 1945. The man who could be that, Mr. Sadiq al-Mahdi, is totally worn out. He doesn't have any popularity. He was heading the last democratically elected government that was overthrown in 1989, but he's not part of the equation today.
Yeah, the times have changed. This power-sharing deal, it was worked out with this mediation by the Ethiopians and the African Union. And just go over with us, if you will, the events of this week, because they pressed both sides. And then out of the hat, in the early hours of Friday, comes the agreement. Your thoughts on that mediation process?
Well, I think that they wanted mostly the mediation process not to be either thrown out of the window or taken over by the Americans, which I don't think are in a position to offer something very constructive anyway. So I think they probably tried to convince the Democratic wing in this face-to-face situation, that it would be a good choice on their part to be a little bit pliable. The problem is in what I'm calling a little bit how far.
Yeah, because what are the stakes for Ethiopia, which has huge problems of its own? With we've seen it recently with the killing of the chief.
Well, the stakes are not direct. They are not afraid of anything coming out of the Sudan. And there is no hostility towards Ethiopia anyway. But the problem is more that given the uncertainty of the Ethiopian situation, Mr. Abiy might not be able to hold elections next year. And so he wants to already have goodwill and things that are pre-charged in his favor in case he has to say, sorry, but it's not a good idea to have elections, and he doesn't want to be condemned by the African Union for that.
One final question for you, Gérard Prunier. Among those at the signing of this agreement, a figure who's been key, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, otherwise known as Hemiti. He's accused of war crimes. He's wanted at the ICC. Your thoughts on his presence at this signing?
Well, it shows, because he's the man who has the capacity to intervene, because he's the man who is in Yemen and who has, about 40,000 men. I'm not sure I could even see men, because half of them are children.
The successors to the infamous Janjaweed militias from Darfur.
He's not even a successor. He's a reincarnation. And also, he is the supplier of cannon fodder for the war in Yemen. Behind him, it's definitely the United Arab Emirates, which are, seen to be in charge.
Right now, is he the man behind the throne, or is he the man in charge?
Well, it's difficult to say, because he has a different agenda. He's on a kind of gigantic reshaping of the Sahel. A good half of his men in Khartoum are not even Sudanese. There are people from Niger, from Chad, a lot of Chadians. He's himself Chadian, by the way. And his cousin is the chief of staff of the Chadian army. You have people from Central Africa, you have people from Boko Haram. The whole Sahel has been, drained of troublemakers to bring them into Sudan. So some of my Sudanese friends, when they talk about the situation today, they say this is a foreign occupation.
All right, many thanks for that, Gérard Prunier. We'll continue to follow events in Sudan. Gérard Prunier, historian and the author of Darfur, the Ambiguous Genocide.
Thank you.
We're going to turn our attention now to the Africa Cup of Nations. Morocco facing